The 30th Infantry Regiment is a United States Army infantry regiment. It was originally constituted the 2nd of February 1901 in the regular army as the 30th Infantry. It was organized the 12th of February to the 19th of August 1901 at Fort Logan, Colorado, at the Presidio of San Francisco, California, and in the Philippines. Assigned the 21st of November 1917 to the 3rd Division. Relieved the 12th of January 1940 from assignment to the 3rd Division. Assigned the 15th of May 1940 to the 3rd Division. Relieved the 6th of April 1951 from assignment to the 3rd Infantry Division. Assigned the 2nd of December 1954 to the 3rd Infantry Division. Relieved the 1st of July 1957 from assignment to the 3rd Infantry Division and reorganized as a parent regiment under the Combat Arms Regimental System. Withdrawn the 16th of June 1989 from the Combat Arms Regimental System, reorganized under the U.S. Army Regimental System, and transferred to the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command. Withdrawn the 26th of May 1992 from the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command. 1st Battalion. The 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry was first constituted in 1813. President Madison formed the 30th Regiment to combat English forces during the War of 1812. However, the regiment spent much of the war in training, and did not see much action. After the war ended, the 30th Regiment was disbanded. When the Civil War began, the 30th Regiment was recreated and reassigned as the 12th Infantry Regiment. The regiment made its home at Fort Hamilton in New York, and shortly thereafter traveled to Washington, District of Columbia. Until 1862, the regiment was designated as a reserve brigade in the Army of the Potomac. After the end of the Civil War, the 12th Brigade was disbanded. In 1901, however, the Philippine insurrection raged. The 1st Battalion was reformed once more under the 30th Regiment and sent to the Philippines, where they spent most of the time in the Mindanao Province. HHC 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment, was reconstituted on the 2nd of February 1901 in the regular army as Company.It, 30th Infantry. It organized on the 16th of March 1901 at the Presidio of San Francisco. Thereafter, the 30th Infantry was assigned on the 21st of November 1917 to the 3D Division, relieved on the 12th of January 1940 from assignment to the 3D Division, reassigned on the 15th of May 1940 to the 3D Division, relieved on the 6th of April 1951 from assignment to the 3D Infantry Division, and reassigned on the 2nd of December 1954 to the 3D Infantry Division. The unit was reorganized and redesignated on the 1st of July 1957 as Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 1st Battle Group, 30th Infantry, and remained assigned to the 3D Infantry Division. The unit was reorganized and redesignated on the 10th of July 1963 as the 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry. It and activated on the 16th of June 1989 in Germany and was relieved from assignment to the 3D Infantry Division. The battalion was reassigned on the 16th of August 1992 to the 3D Infantry Division and activated in Germany. It and activated there on the 15th of January 1994. It reactivated on the 16th of February 1996 at Fort Benning. In 2006, the 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment was moved from the 3D BCT to the 2D BCT as part of the Modularity Program. Iraq. The 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment deployed with the 3D Brigade, 3D Infantry Division to Kuwait in January 2003 during the build-up of forces before the invasion of Iraq. When the invasion started on the 19th of March, 1-30 was one of the first battalions to cross the border, eventually working its way to Talal, where it fought its first engagement. The day after taking Talal airfield, a portion of the battalion's scout platoon was ambushed on a bridge outside of Anisaria, wounding 2 of the scouts. One of the scouts and a battalion S3 both were later awarded Silver Stars for their actions on the bridge that day. While on Talal airfield, the battalion conducted Operation Dirty Deeds, which consisted of looking for WMDs inside the airfield. After Talal, 1-30 was ordered to secure the lines of communication and man checkpoints for a couple of days while the rest of the 3D Brigade continued combat operations in the vicinity. A few days later, Company B attacked As-Samawah while its 1st platoon continued to hold a defensive position near Nasiriyah. When the Fedayeen were defeated in As-Samawah and 1st platoon rejoined the company, 1-30 continued its movement north with the rest of 3D Brigade. At the same time, Company C was ordered to march over 35 kilometers to support the taking of OBJ Vikings, a bridge outside the city of Ashinafia. Company C took with them the mortar platoon, Section B from the scout platoon and the forward aid station. While Company C was holding the objective, 3 tanks, one of the scouts' vehicles, and an M113 engaged in an extended firefight on the opposite side of the bridge during a patrol. The engagement ended with 35 or more Iraqi soldiers killed, and not one American casualty. This firefight was documented by Time magazine's Alex Perry. He and his photographer were in the M113 during the firefight. 1-30 next saw action at Karbala, where it secured the Karbala Gap in order to allow the safe passage of 3rd Brigade in its movement towards Baghdad. 1-30 held Karbala Gap for 2 days until relieved by elements from the 101st Airborne Division. During those 2 days, Company B of 1-30, most notably 1st and 3D platoons, inflicted heavy losses on Iraqi Republican Guard units on the outskirts of the city. The Scout Platoon and Troop D, 10th Cavalry, the 3D Brigade's reconnaissance troop also inflicted heavy losses on the Medina Republican Guard Division with artillery fire and by spotting rounds for the Bradley fighting vehicles as they fired into the city. After Karbala, 1-30 rejoined 3D Brigade and continued its march on Baghdad. On the 6th of April, the battalion reached the city and, with 1st Platoon of Company B in the lead, fought several engagements with defending Republican Guard units. By the 10th of April, the battalion pushed its way into Baghdad and set up its headquarters at a water treatment facility in the northwestern sector of the city. It participated in combat patrols and humanitarian relief missions until relieved in June 2003. 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry moved back to Kuwait in June 2003 and flew back to Fort Benning, Georgia at the end of July. The unit again saw action during Operation Iraqi Freedom 3. The 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment deployed from Fort Benning on the 8th of January 2005. The deployment began in Kuwait, where the battalion prepared its equipment and conducted final training exercises prior moving north to Iraq. The 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment then road marched by land and air into Fob, Normandy, Iraq on the 21st of January 2005. Company B was attached to the 3D Brigade, 42D Infantry Division headquarters at Fob War Horse, to serve as a quick reaction force. In Iraq, 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment was organized as Task Force 1-30, which included Battery B, 1st Battalion, 10th Field Artillery Regiment and Company B, 2D Battalion, 34th Armor Regiment. The next 11 months Task Force 1-30 conducted several operations throughout the province of Diyala. In June 2005, Company B, 130th Infantry, was attached to 2nd Battalion, 69th Armor Regiment, and moved to Ramadi, in the Anbar province, as part of 269th Armor for the following 7 months. Company B, 130th Infantry participated in over 200 combat missions and was responsible for over 500 enemy gear. Its most notable actions occurred in 2 separate battles at TCP-5 in eastern Ramadi. The first engagement involved 1st Platoon, Company B, and a platoon from a Pennsylvania Army National Guard unit. On the 15th of September 2005, hundreds of enemy combatants launched a coordinated attack across Ramadi. In the east, the focal point became ECP-5. 1st Platoon, Company B, serving as 269's Quick Reaction Force, quickly responded to the attack on the ECP and killed over 65 enemy personnel and saved the badly outnumbered guardsmen. 1 month later, another large group of enemy combatants again attacked TCP-5. 3rd Platoon, Company B, responded and had nearly identical results as 1st Platoon. Company B suffered 2 killed and over a dozen wounded in Ramadi. In January 2006, Company B rejoined the rest of the battalion in Kuwait. In January 2006, Task Force 1-30 was reorganized back to 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment at Fort Benning. During the months of January and February 2005, 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment prepared its soldiers and equipment for future operations in Iraq. In Kuwait, the battalion conducted several weapons ranges, added armor on vehicles, and tested equipment. The month of January was finished by the ground assault convoy into Iraq. Over 800 soldiers, 100 vehicles, and several containers of equipment all traveled over 300 miles into the heart of Iraq. In February 2005, 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment consolidated on FOB Normandy, located near the city of Muqtadiya. They were met by 2D Battalion, 2D Infantry Regiment, which had successfully completed operations in Iraq during OIF-2. In March 2005, 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment organized into Task Force 1-30 and conducted relief-in-place operations and transfer of authority with 2nd Battalion, 2nd Infantry, which set the stage for future operations during OIF-3. In addition, Task Force 1-30 was introduced to the 205th Iraq National Guard, 2D Battalion, 2D Infantry Regiment, occupying FOB Normandy, who became partners to help complete the mission. Between March and December 2005, Task Force 1-30 conducted several operations. These operations ranged from offensive coalition operations to civil military affairs operations intended to rebuild and promote democracy in the local Iraqi population. With every operation, the task force partnered with Iraqis to complete the mission. In March, Task Force 1-30 conducted its first major operation in the city of Manshur-ut al-Jabal, known as Operation Spring Cleaning. The operation resulted in the capture of 8 HVIs and a large weapons cache. In April 2005, Task Force 1-30 conducted Operation Morning Rain into Muqazza, Abu Kama, which resulted in the capture of several enemy fighters and capture several of weapons caches. In July 2005, Task Force 1-30 with Iraqi Army and Iraqi police conducted Operation Longest Yard, which also ended with the capture of several enemy fighters and capture of several weapons caches. The mission statement from the task force commander states, TF-1-30 trains and develops Iraqi security forces, conducts civil-military operations, and neutralizes anti-Iraqi forces in order to contribute to Iraqi self-reliance in area or operation battle. On order, TF-1-30 conducts out-of-sector combat operations to destroy enemy forces in order to prevent the enemy from disrupting progress toward Iraqi self-reliance. In January 2006, Task Force 1-30 was redeployed from Iraq to Fort Benning in the United States. The 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment was reinstated on the 6th of September 2006 at Fort Stewart in a reflagging ceremony. The regiment took over the place of the 3D Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment as part of the reorganization to modular units of actions for the 3D Infantry Division. The 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment participated in the surge, ordered by President George Bush in early 2007 to reinforce coalition forces in and around Baghdad, Iraq due to the increase of violence and attacks from Al-Qaeda and insurgents. 130 in under the command of LTC Kenneth Haji, deployed to Iraq, to Fob Falcon south of Baghdad in May 2007 and built several patrol bases in Arab Jabbar, the countryside east of Fob Falcon. As many as 14 previous attempts to infiltrate this area were unsuccessful due to numerous IEDs and enemy activity. 1-30 Infantry's mission was to clear this area of Al-Qaeda and insurgents and help prevent the flow of weapons into Baghdad, as well as re-establish rapport and good relations with the local population. From June 2007 to August 2008, 1st Battalion was instrumental in driving enemy forces out of the region south of Baghdad in large operations such as Man Torch and Man Thunderbolt, and succeeded in helping establish the Sons of Iraq, a police force consisting of local citizens to help keep order and also helped establish the basic infrastructure. In mid-2008, 1-30 Infantry sent at least 2 platoons of soldiers to Sadr City to participate in the siege of Sadr City to quell fighting there. 1-30 Infantry redeployed to Fort Stewart Gar in August 2008. 1-30 Infantry was then commanded by LTC Dan Cormier in late 2008, and began preparing for deployment to northern Iraq in 2009. 130th Infantry served from December 2009 until October 2010 in Iraq, primarily in the ethnic hotbed of Kirkuk, and conducted combined checkpoints with the Iraqi Army and Kurdish Peshmerga. LTC Cormier redeployed the unit in October 2010 and relinquished command of the battalion to LTC Mike Jason on the 26th of January 2011. Enduring Freedom. In the summer of 2011, the 1st Battalion 30th Infantry Regiment became the first 3ID unit on Fort Stewart to receive and train on the Army's newest M1A2 September tanks and M3 Bradley fighting vehicles. The battalion conducted training exercises on a Level 2 gunnery through October 2011, making it the first 3ID battalion to reach a high state of readiness. In November 2011, the battalion was ordered to prepare for an immediate deployment to Afghanistan. The battalion immediately reorganized to a light infantry organization. The Cobra Tank Company remained relatively unchanged and began training on new MATV vehicles and would serve as the anti-tank wheeled company. Soldiers from the HHC Scout Platoon, and the remaining companies reorganized into 3 balanced rifle companies, working with 5th Special Forces Group. The battalion entered a fast-paced training plan culminating in a single battalion exercise at the National Training Center. During this exercise, half of the battalion staff was already in Afghanistan on the Torch Party. Nearly 48 hours after returning to Ft. Stewart from the Mojave Desert, the unit began deploying to Afghanistan. A company, with attachments from CNF companies, was attached to the Marine Special Operations in Helmand. B Company with CNF company attachments was also attached to the Marine SOF in Herat. The rest of the battalion became Special Operations Task Force North, or Task Force Bork, in Mazar-e-Sharif, Afghanistan. Here the task force was task organized with U.S. Army SOF, Navy SEALs, and other attachments to conduct village stability operations while assigned to Combined Joint Special Operations Forces Afghanistan. 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry was the first mechanized unit in U.S. history to serve as a Special Operations Task Force and the first ground combat unit of the 3rd Infantry Division to deploy to Afghanistan. During this time, the unit adopted the unofficial motto of "Hold the Line," which echoed back to the unit's stand on the Marne River in World War I, later on the Arno River in World War II, the Tigris in Iraq, and later the Helmand River in Afghanistan. In the spring of 2012, TF-130th served as the Combined Forces Special Operations Component Command Afghanistan, conducting the first accelerated Afghan local police program in the remote province of Takhar on the border with Tajikistan. With partnered Afghan commando forces, the task force conducted over 45 direct action air assaults, clearing white space in support of village stability operations, the Commander ISAF's counter-insurgency main effort. Scores of high-value targets and enemy forces were captured or removed from the battlefield. In Helmand and Herat, A and B companies were often in daily contact with enemy forces. HHC mortars and medics were scattered throughout the country supporting numerous village stability sites. They were consistently praised for the actions while in contact. C Company platoons, task organized with F Company logisticians, provided ground supplies to over 40 separate remote outposts throughout Afghanistan and drove over 47,000 miles during the deployment. In June 2012, the battalion executive officer was killed in an accident. 1st Battalion 30th Infantry redeployed to Fort Stewart in late October 2012. The battalion took leave and returned to reorganize again as a combined arms battalion. For their actions in Afghanistan, the unit was nominated for the Meritorious Unit Award. LTC Michael D. Jason relinquished command of the battalion to LTC.It on the 25th of January 2013. 2D Battalion. The 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry was first constituted in 1813, shortly after the formation of the 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry. President Madison formed the 30th Regiment to combat English forces during the War of 1812. However, the regiment spent much of the war in training, and did not see much action. After the war ended, the 30th Regiment was disbanded. When the Civil War began, the 30th Regiment was recreated and reassigned as the 12th Infantry Regiment. The regiment made its home at Fort Hamilton in New York, and shortly thereafter traveled to Washington, District of Columbia. Until 1862, the regiment was designated as a reserve brigade in the Army of the Potomac. However, the ravages of the Civil War took the toll on the Union Army, and so the 2D Battalion entered action in 1862. The regiment saw action in many battles during the course of the Civil War. After the end of the Civil War, the 12th Brigade was disbanded, and the 2D Battalion did not take part in either the Indian Wars or the Spanish-American War. In 1901, however, the Philippine insurrection raged. The 2D Battalion was reformed once more under the 30th Regiment and sent to the Philippines, where they spent most of the time in the Mindanao province. In 1918, the 2D Battalion saw action during World War I under the 3D Division. The 2D Battalion saw action at the Chateau d'Arry Marne counteroffensive, where the 30th Regiment successfully held off 25 German counterattacks. After the Marne counteroffensive, the 2D Battalion saw action in the Somme defensive, the Battle of Chateau d'Arry, the Aisne defensive, the Champagne-Marne offensive, the Saint-Mihiel offensive, the Battle of Meuse-Argonne, and the Aisne-Marne offensive. After the war ended, the 2D Battalion served as a part of the Army of Occupation of Germany. In 1919, the 3rd Infantry Division moved back to the U.S. and set up at Fort Lewis. The 30th Infantry, in turn, was stationed there, where they remained until the start of World War II in late 1941. The regiment moved to Fort Ord, California, where they practiced amphibious tactics for the battles in North Africa. The 30th took part in Operation Torch, the liberation of French Northern Africa, and helped liberate the city of Casablanca. The 30th stayed near Tunisia until 1943, during which they prepared for the invasion of Sicily. In July 1943, the 30th Infantry and U.S. 3D Infantry Division was designated as JOS Force for the invasion of Sicily. On the 10th of July 1943, the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division moved onshore, captured and secured the city of Licata. Within 3 hours of landing, the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division captured and secured. Within 2 days of landing, they had captured and secured the city of Agrigento. 4 days later, the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division captured the city of Palermo, traversing 100 miles of the roughest terrain on Sicily. They arrived in Palermo on the 16th of July 1943. The 30th moved into the lead for the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division, moving eastward toward the city of Messina. During the Battle of San Agata, General Patton specifically chose the 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry to move to the right flank of the 29th Panzer Grenadier Division. The objective was for the 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment to make a seaborne landing at Rolla and cut off the 29th Panzer Grenadier Division from escaping Messina. The 2nd Battalion failed in the first attempt to cut the 29th off. However, General Patton ordered the battalion to re-engage the enemy. The second time, the battalion successfully maneuvered around the 29th Division. The 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry successfully engaged an entire division for as long as possible, nearly an hour and a half. Although the majority of the 29th Panzer Grenadier Division successfully retrograded, the 2D Battalion received the Presidential Unit Citation Award. The 2nd Battalion then continued operations throughout the boot of Italy, including operations in Salerno, Acerno, Volterra, Avellino, and Mount Rotunda. On the 22nd of January 1944, the 30th Regiment conducted amphibious operations at Anzio. This marked the 2D Battalion's 5th amphibious operation and was also its most costly battle. On the 4th of June 1944, the regiment entered Rome. On the 28th of August 1944, the 30th made its final amphibious landing at Cavillers, a town in southern France. It spent the majority of September through December 1944 fighting in the Vosges Mountains and began its assault on the Siegfried Line in Austria on the 15th of March 1945. On 8 May 1945, the war in Europe ended, and the 2nd Battalion began stability operations in Western Europe. The 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry was relieved on 6 April 1951 from assignment to the 3D Infantry Division and subsequently reassigned on 2 December 1954 to the 3D Infantry Division. It was inactivated again on 1 July 1957 at Fort Benning, Georgia, and relieved from assignment to the 3D Infantry Division. When the Army reorganized under the Pantomic concept, the former Company B, 30th Infantry Regiment was reorganized and redesignated on 3 January 1958 as Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 2D Battle Group, 30th Infantry, with its organic elements concurrently constituted. The battle group was formally activated on the 22nd of January 1958 at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. It was reorganized and redesignated the 1st of April 1963 as the 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry, and assigned to the 3D Infantry Division. It was again inactivated on the 16th of June 1989 in Germany and relieved from assignment to the 3D Infantry Division. On the 16th of January 2005, the unit was assigned to the 4th Brigade Combat Team, 10th Mountain Division, and activated at Fort Polk, Louisiana. It was redesignated on 1 October 2005 as the 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment, Afghanistan and Iraq. In November 2006, the 230th Infantry deployed with other elements of the 4th Brigade Combat Team, 10th Mountain Division to Afghanistan as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. It served there with Task Force Warrior until returning to Fort Polk in 2007. In the fall of 2007, soldiers of 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment deployed to East Baghdad, Iraq, and continued the mission until early 2009. During that time, the battalion fought along the eastern boundary of Sadr City, eventually participating in the siege of Sadr City in mid-2008. The U.S. military claimed that between the 3rd of May and the 9th of May, it had killed at least 76 militiamen. In preparations for operations in Afghanistan, 2nd Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment deployed to Camp Guernsey Army Airfield, Wyoming, in February 2010 to conduct month-long training. 2D Battalion, 30th Infantry Regiment deployed to Afghanistan in the fall of 2010, returning in October 2011. Company E. The separate Company E, 30th Infantry was activated on 25 August 1966 at Fort Rucker, Tal, to assist in providing training to aviators at the Aviation Center during the Vietnam War. A message from the Department of the Army dated 31 January 1969 dictated that the LRP designation be dropped, and on 1 July 1978 the company was inactivated, with remaining personnel being assigned to Company C, 509th Infantry, also stationed at Fort Rucker. Campaign participation credit: Philippine Insurrection, Mindoro 1901. World War I, Dane, Champagne-Man, Ain-Man, Saint, Mahiel, Musagon, Champagne 1918. World War II, Algeria, French Morocco, Tunisia, Sicily, Naples, Foggia, Anzio, Romano, Southern France, Rhineland, Ardennes, Alsace, Central Europe. Awards and AMP decorations: Presidential Unit Citation, Streamer Embroidered Sicily, Presidential Unit Citation, Streamer Embroidered Mantua Otundo, Presidential Unit Citation, Streamer Embroidered Besancon, France, Presidential Unit Citation, Streamer Embroidered Colmar, French Croix de Guerre with Palm, World War I, Streamer Embroidered Champagne-Man, French Croix de Guerre with Palm, World War II, streamer embroidered colmar. French Croix de Guerre, World War II, Forager. The Valorous Unit Award, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Baghdad, Iraq. The Valorous Unit Award, Operation Enduring Freedom, the 1st of April 2011 to the 1st of September 2011, to include the following attached or assigned units: Company F, 94th Support Battalion.